Hey there, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth, as always with some ideas and insights what to pay attention to when you're growing and scaling your business. And today we're going to tackle one of the most prevalent problems in small businesses. Again, and we talk about this quite often, but I keep getting more questions from everybody and I wanted to address this. This is kind of the elephant in your empty office, and this is why you can't seem to hire anyone decent despite throwing money, benefits, and tons of ads kind of into the void, and you're not getting nearly the responses that you wish you would get. So, as per usual, let's start with the hard questions. And I want you to be really honest here. When was the last time you actually wanted to work for someone just like you? Give that a moment and think about this. And I know this might hurt, but stick with me here. Because according to the last NFIB survey, nearly half of all small business owners can't find qualified applicants. 87% are failing to land appropriate candidates altogether. But here's what's fascinating. We're all blaming the labor market, the economy, the government benefits, or the mythical work ethic of today's labor force of the young generations. So that's always the easy way out, right? Blaming the external circumstances. But meanwhile, we're ignoring kind of what would be the hiring equivalent of having spinach in your teeth on your first date. So to demonstrate what I mean here, let me tell you about my client Diane. She runs a property management company and was absolutely convinced the hiring market was broken beyond repair. And I'm picking Diane as an example here, but I'm going to tell you, like 80-90% of our clients who come in the first conversation, they're like, can't hire, can't find good people, nobody wants to work. I have this conversation over and over and over again, like every single day. And my answer tends to be, you know what? I mean, you're right, you can't hire, and you're right, you can hire. But which one it is kind of up to you. And people always look at me like I'm completely off my rocker here. But everybody seems to think nobody wants to work anymore. And that was also what she said to me at least, 5 times in our first conversation. So I asked her to show me her last job posting. And I'm not sure how to put this delicately, but it was kind of a dumpster fire of conflicting expectations, vague responsibilities, and really the personality requirements of both a drill sergeant and a therapy dog. It was like all over the place. And I asked her, if you saw this job posting, would you apply? Would you be excited about this company? And there's this beautiful moment of stunned silence followed by a, oh my God, I might be the first problem. So that's kind of our first aha moment here. So the painful truth here really is that most of us have become kind of the equivalent of the person who complains that they can't find a good relationship while maintaining impossible standards and refusing to work on themselves. And, I know some of you might hate me a little bit right now, but hopefully you're still listening, because I do have a point to all this, and I'm saying this with love and compassion, and I promise we'll get to some easy to implement solutions in all this whole thing. So let's just dig a little deeper right now. It's not just that you can't find people, it's that this hiring struggle is creating a catastrophic chain reaction in your business. It's creating this really dangerous cycle. So what happens is you can't find good people. So you're working 70, 80, 90 hours yourself. And because you're completely overwhelmed and overworked, you don't have the time to properly train the kind of mediocre people that you might be hiring. And because they're poorly trained, of course, they're underperforming, and their underperformance means now your customers are unhappy. And of course, unhappy customers means it leads to lost revenue. And lost revenue means now you can't afford to hire better talent. So we have this vicious cycle going on that isn't happening, that isn't helping anybody. And I call this the small business death spiral. So meanwhile, while all that's happening, you're laying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if you should just sell the business and get a job yourself. Kind of the ultimate irony here. But here's this kind of the second aha moment with this. Your hiring problem isn't actually about hiring at all. It's about becoming hiring ready, which means you actually can hire and can succeed after you hire, but it's fundamentally different from being ready to hire. So let me say that again. Being hiring ready is fundamentally different from being ready to hire. So let me explain this a little bit, because most small businesses are generally attempting to hire before they've built the infrastructure that makes hiring possible and much more important, successful. So it's kind of like trying to build the framing of a house before you've put the foundation in place, which, might look good for a second, but then the first storm comes and the whole thing falls apart. So let's get practical here. Here are 3 practical, immediately implementable steps that you can take this week to work on your hiring readiness. And I'm not going to say these are the only steps to take, but if you start with these 3, it'll really help you. So first one is called the reverse interview technique. So what I want you to do is, instead of writing out a job description, I want you to write out the answers to the questions every good candidate, like every A player, is always asking in their mind before they go in, when they even look at your job posting, and most certainly they're going to ask themselves these questions during the interview, and if the interview was successful later on, when they're thinking about should they consider your offer. So the first question is always, who is this company? Where is it going in the longer term? Like, what's the vision, right, for the company? What's the longer term strategy here? And how does this role that I'm applying for fit into the overall company strategy, right? So this is kind of the context everybody wants to have. And I'm going to go right back to the 5 C's here. If you've heard me speak before, you know what this is driving to, but the 5 C's are so important with being hiring ready. And the first one is absolutely this piece of understanding getting the clarity, what the company is about, right? This is the clarity aspect. So the next one is, so that's the big picture. And then we're talking about what will success look like in my first 30, 60, 90 days, the first year, right? So now we're talking about the context. So getting a little bit more, understanding a little bit more of the nitty gritty of the details that will lead to actually being successful in this role. And then part of that, of course, is the next one, which is specificity, right? How specifically will my performance be measured? And this is about communication. This is about specificity. This is about understanding the measures that will determine, is this candidate successful or not? And then we're going into the next one, which is what's the biggest challenge the last candidate faced in this role? So in our, what we call VMO structure, that means, hey, what were the obstacles that previous candidates that this role has faced before? It's really important to know, because as a candidate, you want to know, hey, is that a match for me? Is that something I want to tackle? Is that something I have the capacity for, or that excites me, right? And then the last one that's really important, especially to the younger generations, is what's the real growth path here? Not just, the kind of corporate line here, what people are saying, but what's real, where can I go with this? So ask these 5 questions, and then I want you to document the answers to this ruthlessly. If you find yourself unable to answer these questions clearly, you've just discovered why you're not attracting quality candidates. this is where you're not hiring ready. You're essentially saying, hey, come work here. I have absolutely no idea what you'll be doing or how you'll be evaluated, but how about just wing it and it'll all be fine. So that's the practice of the reverse interview technique. So the second practice is the mission to metrics bridge. So the issue is most job descriptions kind of list these random tasks without connecting to them to anything meaningful. So when we're talking about vision and mission, when we're talking about overall company strategy, there's just a list of random tasks, and that's like super basic level 1 delegation being attempted by the business owner. So they're not connected to anything meaningful. So instead, what I want you to do is create a direct line from your company's mission all the way down to daily activities. So what's the mission? Where's this company going, right? Mission, vision, and daily activities. How are they relating to those pieces? Because every single employee needs to know how what they do every single day actually impacts company strategy and results and success. So for example, don't just say, you're responsible for customer service. Say, hey, you'll protect our reputation for 5-star service by resolving customer service issues within 1 business day, maintaining our 98% success rating, which directly supports our mission to be the most trusted provider in the industry, right? So that's like, now you have clear metrics, you have clear values in there. You have like all the pieces that make a specific goal and expectation. We want to have those really specific. So see the difference here. One is a task. The other one is a meaningful contribution to something bigger. It's the big picture of the entire project instead of like little teeny tasks that make no sense because they're not linked to anything whole. Okay, third, and this is the game changer, it's implement what I call decision-making architecture. And it's very closely related to, I think I did a podcast on the RACI matrix and how to use that a few weeks ago. If I haven't, I should. I'm going to check that out. But the number one reason good employees leave businesses isn't about money. It's lack of clarity. It's lack of leadership. It's micromanaging and lack of autonomy that they have, which all of that leads to decision paralysis. And that is the number one reason for employee discontent, and it's the number one reason of employer discontent, because this means now that you've created a completely codependent culture where nobody can do a single thing without your approval, without your help, without your clarification, because hey, they don't get what decisions are theirs to make and which are not, and how they make those decisions, right? So this means decisions a team member can make completely on their own, so they understand which decisions they should consult on, but they still own the decision and they own the project, the piece of it, the decisions that require approval, and of course decisions that are completely off limits. So when you use this simple framework, it creates immediate clarity and prevents that soul-crushing micromanagement that drives away your best people, and face it and be honest, it drives you crazy too, because it feels like everything is always up to you, and if you're not on it, it doesn't happen. So now that we talked about all that, let me tell you what happened when Diane implemented just these 3 practices. Within 2 weeks, she completely rewrote her job postings using the reverse interview and mission to bridge approaches, and she created decision-making architecture documents for each role. And the results here was the applications from qualified candidates increased by 40%. But more importantly, she hired 2 people who were great fit, who worked out from the beginning, and now it's 18 months later, they're still with her. And this is an industry where generally kind of a 6-month tenure is considered a success. So consider all that. And here's your final aha moment. The labor market isn't what's broken. It may be your approach to it that may be broken. And when we summarize all this, when you create a genuine clarity, connect work to meaning, and establish proper decision-making frameworks, you absolutely become magnetic to the exact kind of people you've been desperately seeking to hire and have so far not managed to do. And the beautiful irony in all this is these systems don't just help you to hire better people, they'll transform your existing team as well. And of course, they completely transform your life, because now you actually have an autonomous team that can make decisions on their own, that can make better decisions on their own, that don't constantly have to ask you for the missing pieces. And so the same infrastructure that attracts great talent also develops it. And, we can take this much further down the road. That also means you have people who are excited to work for you, who think like they have won the lottery. They have great loyalty to you if you keep leading them appropriately. And that also means your retention rate is going to be much, much better, so you don't have that constant revolving door. So next time you catch yourself blaming the labor market, the economy, or the younger generations, I really want you to pause and ask yourself, is my business truly hiring ready? Have I built the infrastructure that would make me want to work here? Because the brutal truth here is A players don't join disorganized companies, or if they do, when they see your house is a mess, they'll bounce. And because they want to see themselves succeeding and growing, and of course, making that meaningful impact. And I know many of you think that the only important factor is how much you can pay people. And if you've followed me for a while, you've heard me talk about human needs theory many, many times. But making an impact, having community, having opportunities for growth, feeling like you matter and what you do matter, all those things matter more than the actual paycheck. And there's a gazillion statistics to prove that. Now, so the good news is you can become that organization today. I just gave you a great starting point, but if you really want to deep in and check out how you can get much further with this, we have a brand new training out there that goes into great details about this. So check out our new training at bizscalingblueprint.com, bizscalingblueprint.com. So I hope this helps a ton. Make the commitment to get hiring ready, to really become this person you want to work for, because I promise you, when you make that transition, your business is going to be able to reach much higher potential. So have a great week, and I will see you next time.